Hey, this is Senator Justin Reedy coming to you at the end of week 3 of the General Assembly session here in Annapolis. I thought I would talk with you a little bit today about the work we're doing on energy policy and particularly focused on trying to stop the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project, MPRP, and put more guardrails around some of those practices and also protect landowners. Um, what I'm going to talk about is not a comprehensive list because there's actually over 20 bills that have been introduced to try to impact Maryland's bad and short-sighted energy policy and to try to address the concerns brought up about MPRP. But I wanted to touch on a couple bills that I'm working on, and then also one or two bills that Senator West, my fellow Carroll County state senator, who also represents Northern Baltimore County, is working on as well on energy that I'm co-sponsoring. So first, one bill that's gotten a lot of attention in the press is we're wanting to stop MPRP, but if MPRP or things like that move forward in the future and they were to seize agricultural land by eminent domain, I'm working with Delegate Mangione from Northern Baltimore County on a bill to be sure that agricultural land would receive 350% of its value if any of it were to be seized for this kind of electric line eminent domain. 350% is we're doing that as a percentage because it's what's known as treble damages or triple damages for that kind of invasion, and also an additional 50% to help with legal fees and other types of reimbursements. Now, obviously, we hope that that would not come to that, but we wanted to have that bill in and really work on that issue so that the General Assembly can understand just how much of a concern we have. I'm also sponsoring a bill with an Anne Arundel County delegate, Brian Chisholm, to put together a complete study and a slowdown of the shutdown of coal-fired power plants, particularly Brandon Shores in northern Anne Arundel County. We want to stop Maryland from shutting these coal plants until we can really get a much better handle on the impact on our overall electric grid. And we believe that communities that are in and around those power plants, and really Marylanders as a whole, need to know when there's corporate action being taken to either dramatically reduce or shut down a power plant that is key to maintaining grid stability. So that's another piece of legislation trying to deal with the whole underlying cause of MPRP being introduced, which is lack of energy production in the state, reliable energy production in the state. I'm also working on legislation with Delegate Mangione about legal fees, trying to help with landowners who may have to incur legal fees to fight this. So that's another piece of legislation we're working on, and an issue we're working on. And then finally, for my legislative package, I have a couple of other things related to energy, but specific to MPRP, I've got a bill in drafting right now that I'm waiting for to return as a draft that would deal with utility companies right now are exempt from replacing trees when they cut trees down to maintain the electric lines and the grid. And that makes some sense when you already have established power lines and you've had to obviously cut through a forest and things of that nature. It makes sense that you want them to maintain a safe perimeter and be able to cut trees down without having to replant trees. But when we're going to be having all of this new carving through forest land, farmland, I believe it's important that this invasion, if it were to happen, they should have to replace in some way the trees that they're cutting down. And that was actually brought to me by a constituent in Carroll County that was concerned about that issue. So that's another thing that we're working towards. Senator West has a number of energy-related pieces of legislation, but two that I think are really good are one is doing an entire task force and study about Maryland's overall energy policy. Now, that sounds like politician or speak with being a task force. But what it would do would make sure we get all of the people who are involved in Maryland's energy policy and production to the table and really go in depth on what our energy needs are, what the causes of this energy shortage are, and what kind of policy solutions we should identify and change, and also have the benefit in the legislation of stopping any new power line from going forward until we can really analyze that more fully. So that's one piece of legislation that I'm supporting with Senator West. The other one is a bill to several years ago, the state passed something called the Climate Solutions Now Act. And it was very urgent that we pass this. But it was very far reaching, and I did not support it. But one of the things that it did was dramatically de-emphasize having natural gas and other sorts of reliable energy resources for the goal of making our state essentially sort of net zero emissions by 2045. It's not reachable, but they wanted to make that the goal anyway. And so what we've done is it's caused us to have much less priority for things like nuclear and even like natural gas and even nuclear, which is actually clean. And there's no economic feasibility involved in this Climate Change Act. It was totally bereft of any sort of acknowledgement that we got to do things that make sense economically. Even if you believe that we need to do this drastic steps, we've got to make sure it makes economic sense. So his bill, it's a Republican caucus initiative to try to get more basic economic standards into that statute. I'd love to repeal the whole thing. It's not likely we'd be able to repeal the entire statute in this General Assembly that's sort of dominated by the progressive left. But we want to is interject more economic factors so that we say, hey, it's got to make sense. It's got to be economically feasible and practicable. So those are several bills that we're working on to try to stop NPRP, deal with the aftermath or fallout if it's rammed through, and deal with the underlying problem of lack of energy production in Maryland. And so it's sort of a combination, trying to assault it on all fronts. I wanted to give you that update so you knew what we were working towards this session on that side of things. Look forward to giving you more information next week as we continue to look at the state's budget, taxes, spending, energy, and public safety. And feel free to reach out to me anytime if I can be helpful to you or your family. God bless.